What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about SoFi, I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really moved in, go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi had a little bit of a rocky day, went down 4.1%, extending that a little bit more after hours today. 25.70 the low, 27.61 the high. So same as yesterday, pre-market seemed somewhat normal-ish. Obviously, you can kind of tell that there was going to be some level of consolidation, but as per similar to yesterday, once the market did open, you had all hell break loose, and that's just because institutions wait up until the market does open, they buy puts, and then they're pretty much allowing SoFi to have that push lower, and then their puts appreciate. So a little bit of fun manipulation, I guess, but we did see a lot of volume today. So 93.8 million shares being traded, 66.7 is the average. A lot of transactions being done after hours today. And most likely that's just the last minute rebalancing. So today is the last day in Q3. And so that does also mean that we potentially could be getting the date of SoFi's Q3 earnings in the next couple of days, because usually like by October the 2nd or 3rd at the very latest, SoFi does PR announcing the date of the earnings. So that could be a pretty good catalyst. Possibly, depending on when it is and whatever else. Aside from that though, the data that did come out today was pretty good. So Jolt numbers came in better than anticipated, both the openings and the quits. So openings came in at 7.2 million, forecast of 7.1. Quits came in at 3.09 and then 3.18 million for the forecast. So even though the market was really wanting negative labor data, this still did push the likelihood of a cut for the upcoming October 29th meeting a little bit higher. So it did go from about 89 to now 96.7% for a 25 basis point cut. And so as I've mentioned, by the end of this week, we should either have a 25 basis point cut fully priced into the market, or potentially a 50 basis point cut being a opportunity, or people starting to assume that could come. So again, that's going to be something big, but it's all going to come down to the shutdown. So you even have Trump saying that we're going to be laying off a lot of people when there is a shutdown. So they do have up until midnight tonight to come to some sort of resolution. If not, then yeah, you're going to see a shutdown. And technically, from what they said, if there is a shutdown, they're going to be pausing all data releases. So as far as tomorrow, ADP employment, manufacturing, even the rest of the week technically would be paused. So again, that's something to keep in mind. And again, that's kind of what caused a certain level of suppression across the board today. So it was rather unfortunate, but I think generally a lot of people are getting too hypnotized about things going down and not about what usually is the result. So for those of you that have been in this scenario in the past, you know that typically there's always a pullback. And from what I've even brought up in last couple of videos, options is signaling that there's going to be a pullback. For those of you that have joined my Patreon, I analyze the big transactions on the options, single leg transactions out of the money, and there's a lot of big institutions and big money that's betting on the broader market to pull lower this week, as well as rolling over into next week. So at the end of the day, people are so hypnotized on we're going to have a pullback, but don't really realize what happens afterwards. So when the shutdown is rectified and all that, they come to a deal. Typically, what has happened in the past, the market does automatically correct to where we are now, if not higher. So people get so caught up in panic selling and all the other jazz, but this might be one of the best times to potentially buy if you believe that things are going to be fixed and whatever else. So again, I'm just throwing that out there. You do your own due diligence. So moral of the story is big money is assuming more pain, but historically speaking, things do recover and it kind of moves a little bit higher even post the whole shutdown being fixed. So again, that's something I just wanted to bring up. Today, there was no official news from SoFi, no SEC filings or anything like that. You did have SoFi Insider posting one very interesting thing. So I don't feel like this is something to buy or sell because of this, but it does look like Derek White was removed from the leadership page. And Derek White is the CEO, or possibly was the CEO of Galileo. So I don't know what's happening. Maybe they're just maybe structuring it, having its own website or something else, but definitely it is something to take note of. Again, I don't really see this being a crazy reason to sell or buy, but it's something to just be somewhat aware of. Looking at shorts, so they are and did increase 183,000 shares today. 9.34% of the free float being shorted, works out to be 109.99 million shares overall being shorted. I do kind of find it interesting with all this fear that's kind of starting to surge in the broader market. You see cost to borrow minimum going negative. This is the first time in almost like 7 business days that has been negative. So some brokers are trying to stimulate some shorting. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that does all play out. Cost to borrow average, on a side note, also did drop dramatically. So that means that multiple different brokers are making it cheaper and cheaper and more accessible for and to incentivize shorting. So again, this is something to keep in mind. Options wise, we had 97 million in calls, 28 million in puts. 44% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. And generally, I like to look at these. So these outliers right here. So between 210 and 215, there was 1.1 million in premiums. So if we kind of pop this open, sort it based on the premiums right here. So you see the primary, and you can always look at the timestamps right here. So it was a multi-leg transaction. And so it looks like in the short term, this right here, there was about 202,000 in premiums. It looks like a 24.50 put was purchased for this upcoming Friday. There was a 13-cent premium that they paid. So they're assuming that's going to be roughly around 24.30-ish. By this Friday, or sub that amount. And then afterwards, they are anticipating for it to recover. So it looks like they have even this Friday, October the 17th and October the 10th, they did sell puts. So they do intend on actually buying some stock. So again, they're doing a multi-leg transaction. So they're assuming that there's going to be a little bit more pain and then it will recover, as pretty much exactly what I just mentioned earlier in the video would happen. So this is why I like to analyze a lot of the data behind the scenes. Don't get caught up in so much emotion, because it's a bad thing if you get have too much emotion and all that fun stuff. From a bull standpoint for today, there's still a good amount of optimism. So consensus for it to be between that roughly 27 and 27.50 by the end of this Friday. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 24.50. So again, a little bit more downside is anticipated. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market. So like I said, some good transactions being done after hours. Most likely a lot of that is linked to rebalancing. So 3.4, 5.2, 1.6 and so forth. So pretty good stuff. Nothing really crazy if you ask me, but these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. So this one, oddly enough, is rather quiet after hours. And a lot of this is linked to, I think, just shorts and hedge funds. So shorts didn't really do too much. So we can kind of look at the intraday. They just jumped right here last minute. So for those of you that actually were watching, I think they went from returning to increasing. But throughout the day, shorts didn't really do all that much. You can see that from the teal line right over there. But aside from that, with it closing at 26.42, it is smack dab right below this S2. So that 26.44 is going to be that key point to really watch for in the short term. I'm looking at the 4-hour chart on a side note, but that 26.44, ideally SoFi closes above that tomorrow. But if there is a shutdown, you can pretty much guarantee that there is going to be a certain level of a pullback. But as I mentioned, if you have a long-term time horizon and you're not on margin, because I know margin's a little bit of a tricky scenario for some individuals, but tomorrow going forward, any dips might be a good opportunity to buy. But 25.21 is going to be that next strong support. So if you're trying to get a deal, just maybe orient towards there. And if it does break below that, then most likely 23.50 might be realistically the next thing to watch for. Aside from all that fun stuff on the actual chart, so it did break below that 10-day moving average, so it's starting to really consolidate. And so that 50-day moving average, which is sitting at 24.68, that's going to be a big deal, at least for SoFi in the short term. Comparing today versus yesterday, you see kind of a little bit more willing buyers, up to roughly about 25.50 to 26.20 for the most part. And so again, just kind of watch for that tomorrow. If let's say the shutdown is rectified and they come to some agreement before midnight tonight, you do have a little bit of not really strong sellers, so it could recover to easily that $27 range right quick. So anticipate a lot of volatility as well. So that's kind of the moral of the story. There wasn't really any news associated to SoFi, no new analyst ratings. So the market as well was still digesting Morgan Stanley's bearish rating, which is rather interesting. But nonetheless, as I've stated, and I will continue to state, SoFi is a very good, credible company, has a lot of solid management. Whether you catch the bottom or the top or whatever else, I think the best thing to do is just dollar cost average. But no matter what, you do whatever floats your boat. If you want to YOLO in now or wait, I'm not here to convert you or to get you to do anything. All I'm doing, reading the data. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.